Pausing your game can be hard work. If you're not careful and diligent with your solution, it can be the cause of a wide number of hard to predict bugs and exploits when the player pauses at an unexpected time or in a specific or unusual way. Working within an engine like GameMaker, we're limited in our approaches, but here's one that involves a single object and provides as close as you can generally get in game development to a fairly universal solution. For the advanced among you, everything you need is actually on the screen now, and I'll link some sort of source code package below if you just want to get straight to it. For everyone else, we just need to make one object, call it oPause or similar, and mark it as persistent. It's up to you to control where this object and therefore the ability to pause is present and not present, but if you want it everywhere in your game, simply mark it persistent, and then you can just create one right at the start of your game and forget about it. Next, in the create event, we want the variables pause, pause surf, and pause surf buffer. We also need the resolution of the game in a width and height variable like this. This might come from a global variable or however your game works, but if you change your resolution at runtime, you'll need to update these variables. And also this method will be tricky to use and need a bit more work if you allow the user to change resolution while paused. Just keep that in mind. Then we'll add the post draw event. I chose this event which comes after all our other usual draw events and just before the application surface itself is drawn, and before the draw GUI events. The idea is we'll capture an image of our game screen to a surface and then disable all of our game objects. We can then draw this frozen image to the screen. First of all, we disable alpha blending. This is mostly a quirk of using surfaces and the way alpha transparency works. We just want to simply copy and draw fully opaque RGB values. Unexpected issues might occur with transparent game entities and so on if you leave this enabled, so turn it off. Ignore this next bit for now. This is where we'll draw our frozen image and there's a reason we do it in this order, but for context, let's move on to this next section. Here is where we toggle the pause on or off. You can do this however you want. Perhaps this is a pause now variable that you trigger from another game object, or input controllers, or whatever you want. But either way, this is the condition for toggling pause on or off. For this example, it's just pressing the P key. So once that condition goes off, we check if we're paused or not, and we make pause true if it was false, or false if it was true. If we are pausing, then we deactivate all other instances with the not me argument set to true. This will leave oPause as the only active instance in your game. Other than the space they take in memory, deactivated instances fundamentally don't exist. They don't run their events, they don't draw, they can't be accessed by ID, etc. This won't stop non-instance processes from running, however, so scrolling backgrounds, animated backgrounds, assets, tiles, etc. will still be updating in the background. This will cause what will look like a sudden jump in animation when you unpause unless you do your own work here to disable and later re-enable these elements. You can do all that here though if you need to. Then we capture this particular game moment. Even though our game instances don't exist anymore, they've already been drawn to the application surface as we are in the post draw event. So all we need to do is copy what's currently on the application surface. We make a new surface that is the width and height of our application surface. We draw the application surface to that surface and we're done. Importantly though, surface data can be very volatile. If you change to full screen or the game window loses focus, etc., surfaces can be lost entirely. So to keep the surface safe, we need to back it up to a buffer. We create a buffer that is the size of the surface in pixels multiplied by 4. This gives us the exact amount of memory we need to store the RGBA values of the surface. We then use buffer get surface to copy the surface data into the buffer. If we are unpausing, things are much simpler. We just reactivate our instances and free the surface and buffer from memory. Now back to this part. If we're currently paused, we want to draw that pause surface over the top of our otherwise empty game. The reason we do this at the start and not the end of this event is so that when we unpause, we still have a frame where we are drawing the pause surface before everything is activated again. Remember, the post-draw event happens towards the end of a game step, so if we were to immediately stop drawing the pause screen, we would see a single frame of the game with no instances at all in it before they start processing again on the next step. By doing it here, we make the unpause process seamless. Anyway, while we are paused, we want to draw the pause image. We target the application surface, which normally you would not have to do. Most draw events target the surface automatically, but the post-draw event actually targets the back buffer, so we need to target the application surface specifically, which will be drawn shortly after this event finishes. Assuming the pause surface exists, we simply draw it at 0, 0 on the application surface. If it does not exist for some reason, like we swap to full screen or various other situations that can cause us to lose surface data, then we restore that data from our buffer. We recreate the surface and copy the data from the buffer using buffer set surface. And that's it. After all of this, remember to re-enable alpha blending, and there you have a pretty universal pause object that you can drop into a lot of projects and it will just sort of work as long as you make sure your resolution values are correct. It's worth mentioning that the instance deactivation system in GameMaker can be a bit of a black box. It's reasonable to not want to trust such a major part of your game to this system, especially for larger and more complex projects, but if you're working on a jam entry or a prototype, I think this method is exceptionally strong and removes a huge chunk of mental load that comes from a lot of other setups. It has its limitations, and there are more flexible solutions out there, especially with the architecture possibilities we've gotten in recent GML overhauls, but they tend to require a lot more work and more setup from the start. So if you're struggling because you didn't plan for this sort of thing early enough, this could be a great drop-in solution. Thanks very much for watching, hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you all next time.